Do you have mystery symptoms? Maybe have been told it is all in your head. You are not alone, and this disease affects more women of this generation, but there is hope. Hey there, everybody. This is Claudia Coffey, and welcome to Bluegrass Life. On today's episode, we're going to talk about something, honestly, that I knew very, very little about, but the symptoms seem like something that just about everybody has on social media. To break it all down is my friend, Terri Paige. She is the co-founder of the Medical Transformation Center. And Terri, it's always good to be back here at Medical Transformation Center, teaching me more new things, arming me with more knowledge so I can diagnose everybody out there on the street. But this is something I told you, I was not familiar with this, and I had no idea how widespread it was. And it's autoimmune disease. What is that?
Well, the short answer to autoimmune disease is when your body turns on itself. It's when your immune system loses the ability to recognize self versus not self. That's kind of the short answer. But a little bit longer than that, what happens is it happens over time. It's not just something that the switch flips overnight and one day you're fine and one day you have autoimmune disease, not kind of like the flu, right? It's something that happens over time, and it's kind of a cascade. And oftentimes it does start in your gut.
What are some of the common symptoms that start to crop up that could be an indicator that this is autoimmune disease?
Most of the time, people will notice things like fatigue, achy joints, sometimes rashes that they can't explain, and they keep going maybe to the dermatologist for a cream for this or a cream for that, but it just doesn't go away, and then ultimately they're diagnosed. But again, especially when hindsight is 20/20.
And also, what you just described sounds to me like an average Thursday for most women, right? Most women that are perimenopausal or menopausal would look at that and say, well, it's just that time of life. How do you end up realizing that those are clear symptoms of autoimmune disease?
Really, I think it takes a diagnosis. It takes a diagnosis ultimately, and really what we have found over the years in Medical Transformation Center is that if you can catch this early, you can actually head it off at the pass. And, not to make claims or promises, but we have seen over the years with our patient base that we're able to, when people are in full-blown autoimmune disease, to turn that tide. It takes work. It doesn't happen overnight. And I can't tell you, we cure your autoimmune disease. But if you're intentional and you use all the tools, and it is a partnership between the patient and us to do this, because we don't have a magic wand to take care of that, because it will include lifestyle management and lifestyle switches like we always talk about, especially with nutrition and diet and how we manage that.
Does this affect more women than men?
It does. And my husband and I were having...
Why do we always get the unfair shake? Why is that?
Because it's a cascade. And again, just to really try to paint this picture for you, autoimmune is kind of a conglomeration of events and lifestyle choices, stress, hormones, so many different things. Sounds like women, right?
Right.
We're very complicated. And to top that off, most of the time, we hold all of that stuff in. We hold the stress, we hold the anxiety, we hold it together. Mm-hmm. And while that can be a good trait, it actually sometimes can be the thing that really hurts us, because we don't have that outlet, that steam valve, and that over time compounds to start to compromise our GI tract, kind of leads to leaky gut, leads to inflammation, leads to our immune system turning on, because the stuff that's leaking out of our gut doesn't belong in the system at large. And then that cascades into potentially an autoimmune disease, because when your immune system stays constantly on alert, unnecessarily, only because your gut is leaking, for example, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. then your immune system doesn't know to respond appropriately. First of all, it starts as a kind of more of a compromised immune system so that you get sick easier. You seems like you catch every cold or catch the flu when everybody's got it, or every little bug, or viruses that are latent in your body start cropping up regularly. But then ultimately that cascades into then your immune system can't tell whether it really is the flu or strep throat or if it's just you. And so it just gets on this high alert, and then that's called autoimmune disease when your immune system is basically fighting you.
So there is autoimmune disease is kind of like this great big umbrella.
And it's an end point.
And then underneath it, there's a couple of different really specific conditions that are autoimmune disease, right? Is lupus.
Yeah,
and
lupus.
Like describe, like, if autoimmune disease is this umbrella, then what are these conditions that we hear a lot about, and how do we know if we have those very specific conditions?
Well, I mean, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease, that's an autoimmune disease. Crohn's is an autoimmune disease. Rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, eczema, psoriatic arthritis, lupus, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. There are so many out there. Multiple sclerosis. There's so many that are out there that they are under that umbrella of autoimmune disease, and when you have immune dysfunction.
So often people would probably, let's say they go to the doctor and complain of fatigue, or you're having some gut issues, very specific symptoms, and they get frustrated because it's like they're not all being put together. And that's why we love coming to you and talking about different ways to approach the symptoms and the conditions that you're feeling. Kind of walk me through, when someone comes in, how do you unravel this? How do you peel back the onion, if you will, to discover, this is autoimmune disease, and specifically it's Crohn's, because I mean that's your wheelhouse here.
Yeah.
And you really deploy different tools to get at that diagnosis.
Well, there are blood tests that you can do. I mean, there are blood tests that will show you that you have these inflammatory markers. Honestly, Claudia, it's always so much better if we can head it off at the pass. And we just assume here at Medical Transformation Center that most people's guts are messed up.
That's the truth.
Back to our earlier conversation,
it begins with the gut.
Pretty safe to say that. And so really, no matter what the person's goal is here, like we have talked about before, some people come because they have the mystery illness already. They don't know what's wrong. Nobody can figure it out. Some folks come because they've got a diagnosis already, like irritable bowel or Crohn's, and they want to know, what can I do? Is there a way I can get my body to heal itself? And then some folks come because, hey, I just want to feel my best. I want to age optimally. But no matter who we're talking to of those three scenarios, we're always going to talk about cleaning up your GI tract, healing your gut, doing the least amount of damage, because it's not the only thing, right? But it's so, so important to everything else working better, whether you're that person with the mystery illness, whether you're the person that's already got the diagnosis, or you just want to age optimally. If your gut is not in integrity, you're not going to hit that goal at all. And so it starts with our microbiome. There's a lot of talk about that, right? You see it on social, you see it everywhere now, which is exciting because, it's something we've been talking about for years. And now when I teach my classes and I say that word, people go, oh yeah, I've heard of that, which is great. Yeah. That's great. There's awareness now. But it really starts there, and there's so many. That's why we recommend the Paleo-Mediterranean way of eating, because that nourishment really helps to encourage a healthy gut. And then you also have to do some things to actually heal the gut, because again, if your gut is leaky, if you just picture this, I always liken it to plumbing, right? Your gut is like pipes, and somebody has stuck little holes in your pipes, and so what's in your gut is really actually supposed to stay inside your gut and not be outside of your system at large. But when you have leaky gut, it's like there are little holes in those pipes, and so what's in your GI tract starts to go out into your system at large, and it's not supposed to be there. And so things that leak out are big peptide proteins that come from gluten or cow dairy, but also toxins, the things that belong in the toilet. And as you can imagine, first of all, that's gross.
That sounds terrible.
It's terrible, but
Yeah.
that's what leaky gut is. That's what leaky gut is. It's what's in your gut that should be nutrition, or it should be, waste products and go out into the toilet, but it's leaking out into your system at large. Well, few things about that. 80% of your immune system is located right around your gut. And so if your gut is kind of shredded or not in integrity, your immune system is not working properly already. That's one thing, back to, immune dysfunction. The other piece is, as you can imagine, if those substances that are leaking out that aren't supposed to be in your system at large, your immune system is your police, right?
Yeah.
Your immune system is looking at those other substances, those big, peptide proteins from gluten and cow dairy, which we test blood to see if you've got like a little bit of immune reaction to that. So that's part of how we know your gut is leaky. But it's looking at that and the toxins that's going, excuse me, who are you? Why are you here? And so then it's activated. And as you can imagine, over time, if your gut if you never heal that gut, then it gets worse and worse and worse. And that's that cascade that leads down to complete immune dysfunction.
So then you can never fight off any disease, any illness, any flu virus that comes around the corner.
It makes it harder and harder, and moreover, you go down that path of autoimmune disease, because then your immune system is actually attacking everything because it doesn't know who to attack. So it's just kind of think scatter like that, and it's attacking everything. And that is actually the definition of autoimmune disease. It's when you can't discern self from not self.
You all not only go about diagnosing people differently at Medical Transformation Center in your approach to get down to what is the core problem, but your way of treating it is different too.
Yeah.
How do you even go about treating autoimmune disease?
Well, again, first of all, and that's what I always say. That's why it's a partnership, is because we can give our patients this information about nutrition, right? But I can't go home and do all of that all day long and go grocery shopping with them and prepare their food. So that piece, knowledge is power.
This sounds like the non-negotiable piece. You have to get your diet under control if you want to control autoimmune disease.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then we have some really cool regenerative medicine tools that work towards closing those junctures. So, closing those holes up in your gut. So we have the tools to do that. And we can, but again, if you keep putting stuff in and not working towards restoring your microbiome, then our restoration of your pipes, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be as effective.
Pipes are never going to be fixed.
Right. So, but we do have regenerative medicine tools that work towards that. And some of them are as simple as just, some targeted supplementation, some amino acids, some peptides, things like that. So we can do that. But then also you all want to start working on that systemic inflammation. And that looks like a number of ways. Again, tools that we have here that are more, I will call those more in the regenerative space, those tools. But then also it's going to be making sure that you sleep, making sure that you really get good restorative deep sleep consistently. That's how our gut repopulates. That's how we restore our microbiome. It's also how we heal, right? And so getting sleep, managing stress, which that's the thing.
Is stress
it's such
a factor that you've got to get stress
big.
under control in order to control this?
Right. And the thing about it is, and this is what I share in the classes that I teach, we're not going to, have no stress. That's not realistic. It's not realistic that we would never have any stress. But what's important is that we start to develop coping mechanisms and ways. I mean, if we can get rid of some certain situations, that's important too. Why put yourself in a situation that maybe you can get out of? Okay, so things that I will list as some examples. A job that you hate, or a bad relationship that's just not going anywhere. Or, some things like when you've got a sick kid and a sick parent, you're the sandwich. You can't really do anything about that, but you can start to develop maybe some other tools. Maybe it's to have somebody come and help you clean your house, right?
Yeah.
So that you don't have to worry about that while you take care of your kids and your parents who are aging. So finding coping mechanisms, whether it's counseling or therapy, exercise, and that's another piece we're going to talk about, but just as a stress mitigator, exercise is huge for that because, what was that old, I always love that in Clueless, right, where she says that she exercises all the time. So people who exercise have endorphins and they're happy. they can't be depressed. Well, there's some truth to that, right? There's some truth to that. And then you go into the other pieces of good health, which are going to be exercise because you want to build up muscle strength. But back to stress and how it wrecks your microbiome, it's really that cortisol response, right? Your adrenals.
Yeah.
And that, kind of downstream gets this really acidic environment in your gut. It encourages that. And that's what starts to switch your microbiome. So it's just that unmitigated stress that's a huge factor of it, which brings us back to women and how we look like we've got it all together and we can handle it. And we can oftentimes, but it's nice to have somebody or mechanisms again in place where, you've got a wingman or you've got somebody that goes, I know you can handle this, but let me help you with that burden for a minute.
Yeah.
And finding those people.
I think sometimes sucking it up and moving forward, keeping up the good fight is only going to destroy your health.
Right.
And we don't think about that as women because I just got to get through this day and I got to get through next week. I can get through. We don't realize that it's having such a detrimental effect on our own bodies.
Well, that book, The Body Keeps Score.
It does.
The body keeps
keeping
score.
Lists.
It's keeping a score. And yes, most of the time we women just handle it. We get it done. But later on, it comes back to bite us.
I want to go back to regenerative medicine. You mentioned that as kind of a core key part. Is that a traditional approach to treating these symptoms? And I'll be honest, I don't really know a lot about regenerative medicine. What is it and what does it do that's different from a traditional antibiotic?
That's a great question. Sorry.
That's why I'm here.
So regenerative medicine, really just a simple explanation of regenerative medicine would be giving the body prompts to regenerate itself. And so some examples of that might be peptide therapies, stem cells, exosomes, using energy, targeted energy, focused in an area to help to encourage regeneration. And we have, and those tools, and it's really amazing to watch that intersection of how, especially when you put energy with a peptide therapy or stem cells or exosomes, you combine those two together. I mean, because those peptides, stem cells, exosomes, those are designed to help encourage growth, repair. They're the little mechanisms that do that. And then when you put energy there too, the energy, so say for example, and we have a cool story that we're following on social of a patient who he had damage to his arm, muscle. He was in a car wreck many years ago and ulnar nerve damage. And as he got older, he really started to claw up like that. Well, we've been using some regenerative peptide therapies and then putting energy on that area as well to encourage the IV or the injected peptides to go to those damaged tissues. And we've been watching him regenerate.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's cool stuff.
And is the idea that if you can regenerate your own cells and create some cells that are
healthy
and growing, that it's likely to last longer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I would say, and traditional allopathic medicine is a wonderful set of tools, and we have not thrown those away. We can use them any day of the week that we need to, but they're not necessarily going to be the ones we go to first, because we're usually going to try to go upstream and figure out what at that cell level is wrong, what's missing, what's going on there, and what can we supply to that cell so he can do its job. So the cell can do its job, because that's really what we're trying to do, is restore function and flexibility to your cells so that you are as restored as you can be.
And there really is this movement going on right now where more and more people are not getting the answers that they want from traditional medical care. And they're feeling very empowered to go online, to go to social media. I see you wincing.
Yeah.
However, is that desire to take charge of your medical history leading people to seek out what you do and seek out advice that, look, I know this is outside the mainstream, but you have the background that can help me address this problem. There's something going on with people just saying, you know what, this is not working and you don't know what this is, but you can help me figure out what this is. And I'm okay taking this alternative route.
Right. You know, we've been doing this type of care since really 2011. We didn't open up Medical Transformation Center as its own entity until 2013. But back when we started, this was just so weird. I'm gonna say it was such a weird thing.
But almost like, why would you do that?
I know. Well, and is that real, or is that just fake, or is there any data behind it? And of course there's data behind it. I will tell you that we would have never gone down this path unless there was a lot of science and research and data behind it. It just hasn't made it to the mainstream necessarily. But what we saw during COVID and in a post-COVID world was what you just described, that just thirst and that desire for, you know, people realizing that maybe they weren't getting the information that they needed at the time to really help them stay well and be well. And especially in this post-COVID world, there are so many people that have been impacted post-virally or post-vaccine that now have pretty significant health issues. But, you know, and now there are some long COVID clinics at certain institutions and things like that. But, you know, I mean, we do get those people here then after oftentimes they've been there, because, again, it's more of the same. It's more of, here's a medication for this problem, as opposed to how can, you know, because really it's immune dysfunction. That's what happens in a post-COVID world, and post-viral long COVID. It's a huge immune dysfunction and an activation of all the latent things that you, viruses and you know, infections that you had already in there that your immune system has just kept at bay. And it goes full blown for a lot of folks, and the fatigue and the brain fog and, you know, the just weird like POTS syndrome, just different things like that that have happened that are these mystery illnesses now that are more prevalent than ever. There is a lot of conversation on social media and out there. What we always hope is that before people start, what is it? Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah.
Before they really start dabbling and ordering things off online and doing that kind of stuff, that they do seek somebody out like us, or, you know, some other places around the country that are going to really look at this responsibly, because there are a lot of off the beaten path tools, but there's also a lot of junk out there too.
A lot of junk that will take your money.
Take your money and actually
do harm, probably.
Yeah. I mean, ours is always do no harm, right? That's the Hippocratic oath. Yeah, do no harm.
Yeah.
And so we're, of course, mindful to do our best with that. And that's the danger of a lot of the online fads and trends. If you kind of think about what happened culturally in the 60s, the 70s, right? There was a movement, right? You know, moms weren't at home all the time back then, you know, as they started to go out into the workplace, and, you know, we were trying to juggle all kinds of roles. And I mean, I was, you know, so I'm the youngest baby boomer. I'm the youngest, 1964. I'm the youngest baby boomer. I'm right on that edge of Gen X or baby boomer. And then you needed more convenience. You weren't going to be at home making everything homemade and all that kind of thing. So, of course, big agriculture had the answer to all of that, which, again, filled a need. There was a need. So it's not necessarily, oh, that was terrible, it was a bad thing. But, you know, I mean, it was the hamburger helper, tuna helper, sloppy joes, manwidges, all of these things that were convenient so that you could come home from work, get food on the table. You know, it was a different life. It was a different life than what had happened in, what is it, the Great Generation? Is that what was before the baby
The Great
boomers, right?
Generation.
So the older baby boomers had a different way of eating and life, but then they were part of that, um, cultural shift. And then, of course, like in every industry, how can we do this better, cheaper, more economy of scale? Then you get into all of the artificial ingredients. By nature, those are all processed foods, so all of those artificial preservatives, all of that kind of stuff, and that's kind of that cascade. And then, of course, the food pyramid: eat this many grains, which turn to sugar, and sugar is super inflammatory. So that's all that gut piece, right? So that's all that, how our gut has cascaded to such a mess. But that's kind of how you could trace that back to a cultural phenomenon.
Right. Autoimmune disease can be isolating to women. How do you suggest and give advice to women so they feel empowered and they don't feel so overwhelmed by the diagnosis?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, talk to each other. Because a lot of times we think that this woman over here has it all together and she's not struggling because she can do everything perfectly. But she's probably struggling with some things. You just never know. So I think the more we talk to each other, the more we ask questions, the more we research. Even when we go to our physicians, our healthcare providers, the more we push the issue. Awareness is growing, and I think it will get louder and more out in the open the more we talk about it.
I think listening to people, my goodness, just listen to somebody and give them space to say, I hear you.
Yeah.
What you're saying, you're not making it up.
Yeah. Whenever we talk with folks who are calling in just to see, hey, can you help me? I've heard, or somebody recommended, or I was researching, I read your blog. We love to be able to say that to them. Oh, yeah, we've seen this before. This isn't unusual for us. No, you're not nuts. I mean, come on in. We hear this, we see it, and we've got you.
I think women, we have this intuition and this gut, back to our gut. Our gut may be leaky, but usually 9 times out of 10, it's pretty dead on with something, if it's a good idea
if
or
we're
a bad
listening
idea.
to us. Yeah.
If we're listening to
ourselves,
it.
yeah.
And I think that I have learned, listening to you, to keep asking questions and to keep seeking, no, I know there has to be a solution for this. And you've really lived that. Yeah. I mean, from day one, you've struggled with so much. I think people can look at you and think, oh, well, her life is great. You, health-wise, you've lived through all this, and you've kept pivoting and seeking answers with Dr. Paige just to arrive here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a long journey. And, what is that term, gaslighting? Mm-hmm. So often I think we are gaslit. Oh, that's not real. Oh, that's not a thing.
It's just in your head.
Yeah, no, that's not really real. And part of it is, I think, time, maybe in more of the traditional medical world. It's very, you have to, primary care physicians are wonderful, and we encourage our patients to have that relationship still with their primary care, but they are under a lot of pressure to move people through. There's a shortage of primary care, and there's a different model now, a business model of kind of one problem, one visit, that type of thing. And so I think it's a systemic problem, and at some point, hopefully that will, I think what you said earlier, the movement on social media, the movement through the internet of awareness is going to ultimately, I mean, we always said the reason we stay in this and do what we do is because our goal is to make this standard of care. And so for the past at least 5 or 6 years, what we've been doing is trying to educate other practitioners about this. We have regular conferences that we're on the faculty with that we do that. And, Carl will be speaking in New York in February, which is so exciting, on cellular medicine. So when you look at 2011, when we started this, and it was weird, and it was a room full of this many people, to today, when the conversation is big and loud, and we were at a conference recently, it was cool to be there because there were podcasters that are really well known, that are in the biohacking world and things like that. And while there were, things that we kind of were like, well, that's not the full picture, whatever, it was good for us to listen and hear, because we usually don't listen to all of those podcasts, right? But to understand what our patients are hearing and seeking. But what was striking to us is this big movement, this big biohacker movement, is kind of like what the things that we were doing maybe about 7 years ago. So, but again, that curve, that what is it? Maybe a tidal wave is the best way to describe it. It's coming.
Yeah.
And so ultimately this will be standard of care. And it's been really an honor and a joy to be at the tip of that. And we'll keep going.
Is there hope for people with autoimmune disease?
Absolutely.
That you can have absolutely a normal life. We can manage this.
Again, I mean, sometimes folks have been struggling and suffering for a very, very long time. And so, oftentimes, especially again, if there's commitment and partnership, we can bring them back to have a much better quality of life. I mean, can it completely go away? It depends. It depends on where we are on that continuum. But I will tell you, yes, there's absolutely hope to improve the situation. Absolutely.
Terri, thank you so much. Great discussion.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.